I'd like to introduce Laura Gregordis, a partner at DGC, to discuss women in real estate.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, I am Laura Gregoriades, a partner and head of the real estate practice at DGC, a regional accounting firm in the US based in Boston, Massachusetts. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with two remarkable professionals who are forging change for gender diversity in the real estate and construction industries. Wendy Mann, Chief Executive Officer of Crew Network, and Amanda Bullough, founder of Awesome Women in Construction. Crew Network's mission is to transform the commercial real estate industry by advancing women globally, and accomplishes this through business networking, industry research, leadership development, and career outreach. With 30 years of association management experience, Wendy brings a passion for commercial real estate, her strategic vision for the association, and a commitment to mentoring and advancing women. She believes that connecting, collaborating, and communicating are key to our success in building relationships and creating change within the industry. Crew Network recently published its fourth benchmark study, representing 20 years of data. It measures the progress for women and benchmarks diversity in commercial real estate. The study is conducted every 5 years and provides critical industry data and insights, including the factors that influence career satisfaction and success. Wendy, welcome. We're so pleased to have you with us today. To start the discussion, would you please share some background information and key findings of the Crew Network benchmark study? How much progress has been made since the last study 5 years ago, and where are the gaps?
Laura, thank you. I'm so honored to be here and to share this important industry information. Crew Network started the benchmark study in 2005. As we were advocating for women, we realized that there was no data to show what the current status was, and felt that we needed to own that. We needed to be the ones tracking the progress of women so that we could speak more effectively. And so here we are 15 years later. We have now 15 years worth of progress, or in this case, there's good news and bad news, the lack of progress. So I think what I'd like to do is just say that we had a great group of women who started this study, and it has been very successful. We partner with MIT, and our response rate this year was much increased over past years because of the partnership of many other industry organizations who joined in by distributing the survey. So both men and women respond, and we had over 2,000 responses to the study this year. And one of the key things that I think is a really important factor is that rather than just focus on gender diversity this year, which is our primary area, we also added questions around diversity and women of color and people of color. And I think that has been very powerful because that doesn't exist right now anywhere in the commercial real estate industry. So what I thought I would do is give you a few highlights of the good news, bad news. The good news this year was that we had an increase of a 5.4% increase in the number of young professional women who responded to the survey. So that is really good to know that we have increased engagement, and they're emerging leaders. So their perspectives are really important to the future of the workforce and the talent pipeline. The second data point that I think is really great is the good news on brokerage and the increase. We had a 6% increase of women in brokerage. And that is really important because other organizations within our community have been working hard to attract more women. And brokerage is a tough business for women as it's mostly commission-based. So that 6% increase, and combined with the younger generation responding, makes me think that there's some entrepreneurial spirit among our young leaders looking for their own pathway forward in commercial real estate. And the third bullet point that I think is part of the good news is that the question we ask around women aspiring to higher levels and to the C-suite went up by 4%. And so that statistic is now at 32% of women aspire to the C-suite, whereas in past years it had been 28%. So that's some of the good news. Some of the news that is not so good is that the statistic of the number of women in commercial real estate is 37% in this study. It's been 37% for 15 years. Where are all the women? Where are the newbies coming in, or are we losing women as much as we're gaining women in the industry? So that's something we really need to look at. There has not been a significant amount of growth in terms of women in commercial real estate. The second bullet point is that a really important one is that the compensation gap remains much of a factor in our industry. Women make 10% less than men when you consider overall bonus and salary together. But the bonus gap alone is 55%. I mean, think about that. That's a huge gap in our industry. And then finally, one other piece of news that's not so great about the study, but important to know nonetheless, is that after all these years and significant change in society around women, still not at where it needs to be, but a lot of progress, we still only have 9% of the CEO roles in commercial real estate are women. And that has not grown in the last 10 years. So those are some of the bullet points that I think are really important just as an overall summary. And we can dig deeper into some of that if you'd like.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about the areas where women have made the least progress. You've just said only 37% of women in the commercial real estate industry as a whole. The salary gap is 10%, commission and bonus gap 55%, and still only 9% of C-suite positions are filled by women. Why is that? How do we make progress in this area? What are your recommendations on changing the narrative?
So Laura, that's great. That's a great point. Why aren't we making progress? Well, I'm going to start with one of the 5 things that we included in the study are how can we make change, or what actions need to happen. And the very first one is this concept of the fish rots from the head down, right? The CEO needs to be committed. And historically, CEOs have pushed DEI to the HR function and said, that's your problem. It's not a company problem. Well, guess what? It is a company problem. So CEOs need to embrace DEI, make a commitment to it, and they need to hold every level in the organization accountable. That will help start that process. The second thing is that companies really need to make a commitment to eradicating bias from hiring decisions. And everyone has bias. We all have it. It's a normal human factor. But whatever companies can do to train and develop hiring managers to ensure that they are not intentionally or unintentionally using bias in the hiring practice, that will help a great deal. The third thing is the issue of pay equity. We recommend that every organization make a commitment to undergo a pay parity study and then do annual pay parity equity testing, because it's not one and done on parity for compensation. It's continual monitoring and managing of that. The fourth item is to conduct intentional recruitment. And that means companies need to not just accept every applicant that walks into the door, but set some standards and expectations around diversity and where they're going and looking for individuals to come into their business. And then the fifth and final thing, which I think is one of the best things that companies can do, is to align and support and partner with Crew Network. We are creating a talent pipeline through our programs and services. We are the only diverse career center that's out there in the commercial real estate space. And we have an internship website where companies can look for interns and bring students in and have them get experience and help them move into the careers that we so desperately need them to have to fulfill our destiny and our goal as a diverse and equitable and inclusive industry. So those are the 5 actions that I would suggest that we focus on and that companies really look at.
Thank you, Wendy. I think I will forever remember that description and analogy of the fish rots from the head. That was the first time I heard of that saying.
It is the first time. So I
Yes.
love saying that because it sticks with people then.
It does.
It's a top-down world we live in. The CEO has to be accountable. So
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Mhm.
The benchmark study was released in September 2020, but the survey was conducted before the COVID-19 outbreak had reached most countries. How do you think this last year and a half has impacted women's progress? Are you concerned that progress has halted, or worse, that women have been forced to take a step back during this time?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a fantastic question. And there's been a lot in the media around the impact on women. And truly, it has. It has hit harder on women in general in our society as women juggled being the teacher, the mom, the colleague, and all of those things 100% at home every day. And so the answer is yes, definitely the pandemic has affected women disproportionately. And I do believe that women will be, will have delays in making progress even more so. And here's one of the things that I heard the statistic that the Women's Economic Forum, a global organization, released some statistics earlier this year that said that they always track the number of years it will take for women to have parity in globally, and the number is now 208 years. So 208 years from now, we will have parity. So that's just unbelievable. It's so long. And I think previously the number had been reported at 135 years, which is still a big number, but 200. And I think part of that, and what the media was saying, is that that's what the pandemic has done to women, is to push the opportunity and the timeline for parity years and years away. And, it doesn't have to happen that way. We can make a concerted effort. And I think one of the things that we saw in commercial real estate specifically is that women left the workforce because they couldn't juggle all the responsibilities. They didn't have some of the flexibility they needed. They were too challenged by the workload, because even though business slowed down, a lot of companies were still doing a lot of work. So anecdotally, I heard from a number of our members that women they said, I can't function and be the parent and be the colleague that I need to be, so I need to step away. And they hoped that it was temporarily, but you don't know when you leave whether or not you'll be able to come back. So I do think that we will see some trickle-down effect. I think that looking forward, that companies are going to need to take a hard look at how they can embrace a different thought pattern or process around women in the industry, and so that there's more flexibility, there's more consideration, and I think that that's a fair way to approach making sure that we don't lose the progress that we have made for women. And women tend to opt out, right? In our study, we know this. Women, when they start having children, tend to want to scale back, or they don't want to aspire to higher roles. We need to have companies create a culture where you can be anything you want in this culture, whatever your family situation. And if a woman does great work and she's accountable and responsible, she should be able to do as much as any man does in any job in commercial real estate. So I would love to see companies say, look, all things are equal. Anybody can do this, and we will respect that you all have home life, not just women, men as well. So I think there's a real challenge there ahead of us, and I think we need to be very intentional about not losing the ground that we have. And my concern has been that people think you get one woman in the C-suite and you're done, or you get one woman on a board and you're done, and it's not one and done. Companies need to continue, because according to studies, you need 3 women for there to be a fundamental difference or cultural change or shift. And so I'm voting for the number 3 in all of these changes as we go forward and come out of the pandemic. I think stronger as an industry, more committed as an industry in many ways, but we need to take those next steps.
Thank you, Wendy. That really demonstrates the urgency in the work that you and Crew Network do, and it's just needed in the industry to make a change. Thank you for that. In closing, what advice would you give to young women starting out in the real estate industry?
Well, first of all, bravo for you, because it's a great business and a great industry. And I think if more young women knew about it, we would have more young women, developers, brokers, architects. There's just so much opportunity. So I say seize the day. So my first note is to say, build your network. Learn what networking is, learn how to do it, and learn that there's no such thing as not being able to reach out and connect with people. Second, find a mentor. And there's a difference between having a sponsor in your company and having a mentor, but you need a sounding board. So I would say, young women, go find a mentor, a woman who may be in another company, in another city, but someone that you can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I've got this problem. help guide me through this. Third, and sometimes this is hard for women, and I've been there and I've done this, but don't stay too long. If you're in a bad situation, if you are in a job that you don't love, that's not working out, don't stay too long. Make the decision. It's fish or cut bait, right? But make the decision and move on. In our work life now, the younger generations have changed. What I came into the world with was, you get a job and you stay in it until you have another job. But the younger generation, there's more mobility, there's more acceptance of gaps in your resume. So don't stay when it's not the right place for you. Two last points I would make. One is be self-aware. There are too many of us that don't look in the mirror and own our own behavior that contributes to our success or contributes to our inability to advance. So make sure you're doing the leadership development work you need to do to become the leader that's going to have the opportunities come to you versus you having to fight for them. Position yourself as the person that can go forward. And the last thing that I think is really important for anyone, but very much so for women, is honor yourself, right? Don't devalue yourself. Don't put yourself, opt out of things before you give yourself a chance to succeed or advance. But honor your values and honor yourself as you build your career. So that would be my advice.
That is great advice and relevant even now, even though I've been many years in the industry. And I wish I had you telling me that when I first started out.
I wish I had me telling myself that, Laura.
Thank you, Wendy. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you. So good to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome Women in Construction was founded by Amanda after she realized women in the industry felt as she did, professionally isolated doing the work they loved, and decided to see if there was enough interest in connecting with other like-minded women. The interest was strong, and as a result, she founded Awesome Women in Construction, AWIC, in 2017. As the driving force, Amanda is committed to positioning AWIC as a leading influence for women in the construction industry. Support, advocacy, and education for women in the construction industry is AWIC's immediate focus. Amanda is a passionate, well-connected construction industry professional with over 20 years experience. Her extensive knowledge in procurement, sales, and production estimating has assisted many companies streamline their businesses and find efficiencies. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, Laura.
We didn't specifically touch upon the construction industry in the Crew Network benchmark study. However, the study shows that women in development and construction are slightly behind the averages that Wendy mentioned for the industry as a whole. I suspect this is the same in Australia as it is in other countries. It's this disparity that has created the need for AWIC. Can you explain how AWIC is helping women in the industry? How do you support, advocate, and educate for women in construction?
Laura, I don't have data for the construction industry across the board. However, a 2018 Women in Construction report commissioned by the Construction Skills Queensland referenced that women make up a very small proportion of construction trade workers, such as carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and cabinet makers. In fact, women accounted for less than 3% of trade workers across Australia, while making up 51% of the non-construction workforce. We saw a need on the ground for more inclusion of women in the industry, both in a physical sense, but also inclusion overall. We find that even when women are employed in the industry, they can still face isolation because of their gender. In some areas, it's because of the nature of the work, being historically or physically male-orientated. But it can also come down to the culture of the organisation in which they work. We are currently developing our 2026 AWIC strategic plan. The focus of this plan is to raise the participation of women in construction and to amplify their voices so they are retained and want to stay within the industry. We aim to do this by 1. Changing the conversation. 2. Supporting our next generation, accidental office managers and the existing women in industry. And 3. We're advocating, educating and amplifying the voices of women in construction. So firstly, AWIC are changing the conversation by defining where women excel, brains versus brawn, multitaskers, time management. If you can run a household, you can run an office. We're also creating an awards program in order to highlight and raise up those organisations who are supporting women in construction. We're also going to be providing regular networking events across our region, which is South East Queensland, Australia, soon branching out to across the eastern seaboard of Australia, which will include Melbourne, Victoria, and Sydney, New South Wales. We're also going to be mentoring and connecting our members across the wider construction community, expanding our Awesome Women podcast series, and continuing to provide our Lunch and Learn webinars that are recorded and stored on our website for members to access at a suitable time.
Thank you. Arguably, one of the most impactful things we can do to support women is to build a pipeline of women who want to join the industry. How are you planning to support the next generation of women in construction?
We're working with women on the ground, connecting our next generation with mentors for guidance and direction. School-age students, 15 years and over, those entering a trade or office-based roles. We're also working with schools, universities, and educational training providers, ensuring that our future generation knows about the career opportunities and pathways that are available for them. Having a career in the construction industry is more than dirty trucks and tool belts. A career in the construction industry is for everyone. We're also intent on supporting the Accidental Office Manager. The Accidental Office Manager is a strong group of women who do the best with what they have. They are generally raising a family and running the family business at the same time, often never thinking they would. We want these women to stop feeling isolated, to know they aren't the only ones who are having problems with invoices being paid on time, finding good staff, and not knowing how to have the tough conversations with their business partner and often life partner. AWIC assists with this by connecting them with other accidental office managers and with professional support through the growing AWIC network base.
In addition to building the pipeline, retention is a critical component to change the narrative of women in the profession. To do this, AWIC is determined to elevate the participation and voice of women in the construction industry. Can you elaborate on how you're going about this?
Absolutely. We will do this through three main pillars: advocate, educate, and amplify. So advocate. In an industry where systemic change is required to sustainably increase the participation of women in the workforce, we recognise that support and advocacy extends beyond a close-knit network. Sometimes support and advocacy means providing the only independent point of contact and the ability to rapidly access a trusted network of advisors. We'll do this by providing a support line available 7 days a week, 6 a.m. till 8 p.m, to connect women to services when dealing with bullying, sexual harassment, and constructive dismissal. We also want to do some research and analyse data to create irrefutable positions to drive industry-wide change, which elevates opportunity for women in construction. As well, we'll be establishing strong relationships with government and regulatory authorities charged with improving diversity, inclusion, and gender performance to ensure consideration specific to women in construction have a voice at the table. Educate. AWIC's role is to champion the elevation of women in construction, and we know that we must also take responsibility for lifting our own bench strength. AWIC will do this through structured, well-informed, outcomes-based personal and professional development and the development of relative consultancy services to the industry. To establish AWIC as the nationally recognised educational and resource hub, connecting members to tertiary, vocational and contemporary training and development programs. We will also establish our own suite of personal and professional development programs focused on women in leadership, women aspiring to leadership, and the accidental office managers in our subcontractor and trade services. Amplify. It is a globally recognised fact that we cannot do what we cannot see. As women, we often need to see to believe in opportunity, in the good intention of others, in the possibility of doing work we love in the construction industry we have chosen. For that reason, we must amplify the voices of women in construction. We'll do this through our events and expanding national member footprint, sharing, celebrating, collaborating, and expanding our circle of influence. We'll be expanding our events to include industry awards, national conferences, and leading the way with our International Women's Day events across the eastern seaboard of Australia. We'll be establishing a media commentary profile for AWIC and creating the foundations for this through strengthening the AWIC podcast and digital media, whilst driving a mainstream traditional media presence to drive the systemic changes needed.
Lastly, Amanda, what advice would you give to women looking to enter into the industry?
Laura, I agree with what Wendy said and with her advice, but we'll add just a little extra. Network, network, network. Go to all sorts of events until you find your tribe. Don't be afraid to be on the second invitation list or be asked to attend an event the day before. Soon, you will be the first name people think of when writing out that invitation list. The other thing is to grab a mentor, personal and professional. They may not be the same person throughout your career, and this is okay. Actually, it's probably for the best. To grow, you'll need to address all the skeletons in your closet. Yes, it can be confronting, but definitely well worth it. The other thing is have a think about where you want your career to go. Aim for the stars. Ask for help along the way. People are happy to do so. The other thing is to trust and back yourself, your values and your beliefs. Just because you're pursuing a career in construction doesn't mean you need to be a bloke to succeed. Keep your femininity. There will be times when you decide to let this one go through to the keeper. But when you choose to fight, stand tall and be proud. Own it. Don't worry about everyone not liking you. You don't like everybody either. The last one is not to settle. Not sure what to do in the construction industry? Reach out and ask to speak to someone, an industry leader. Get some variety, get some opinions. Don't like your role or how the company treats its employees? Leave. Know when to stay and fight and know when to leave. This can be a tough one. I, on occasion, have stayed and fought for too long. Aim for the stars. Anything is achievable. And don't worry about having a perfect plan. Just start. My career in the construction industry has provided me with opportunities I could have only dreamt about. I have worked with wonderful leaders and colleagues, many who I call friends today. I have also worked with leaders and colleagues at the other end of the spectrum and turned the negative teachings into positive learnings. You too can have a very successful career in the construction industry. It does require hard work, dedication, and a little sacrifice. But remember, it's not all about dirty trucks and tool belts. If you're ready to educate, advocate, inspire, support, and provide a voice for women in the construction industry, then we want to work with you.
Thank you, Amanda. That was fantastic advice, especially the idea of not sticking around too long and leaving when it's time to leave. I think a lot of women need to hear that message. Thank you. If you are interested in learning more about Crew Network or AWIC, please visit their websites and social media channels here on the screen. Wendy and Amanda, thank you for your time and for sharing the importance of supporting and advancing women in the real estate and construction industries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good to be here. Thank you so much.